Now that I have the user interface running on my laptop, which will be the design machine, I'll open up the example by going to Workflow, Load, Toolpacks, Example, Workflows, example.work. To give you an idea of what's going on in this workflow, I'll use the selecting tool to select each vertex. You can see the first is a file system vertex, which takes this input name, located at this absolute path on the home machine, and the home machine is the machine on which we will actually run the final generated script. And then it takes the first 10 lines of that file, and finally the last 5 lines of that output file. Now we will define a realization set. Since we only have one realization, since we haven't created a hyper workflow, I will select 200 head 5 as my goal vertex, which will automatically run all dependencies of that vertex, and I'll just give it a name as my default realization set. Before we can actually generate the LoonyBin script, first we need to make sure that all required files are present on the home machine, the machine on which we'll actually be running this workflow. And since all LoonyBin workflows require the LoonyBin scripts package, we'll just copy that link directly from the SourceForge page, log on to the machine that we'll be running this on, the home machine, and then just use a standard Linux command to download the files. Now we just extract the downloaded file using the tar command, and now we'll create a paths directory for the home machine. Now we go into the LoonyBin scripts directory that we just extracted. We can use pwd to get the current directory. We'll put this in the paths directory we just created in a file called LoonyBin scripts, which is a special name that LoonyBin knows to look for. The example input to our home machine, located under Toolpacks, example in a directory called example input. I'll use scp to copy this directory to our home machine under user 5jh clark, and sshing to that machine. We see that we have a directory called example input containing example.txt. We'll get the full path, an absolute path to our example input file, copy that absolute path to the clipboard, and go back to LoonyBin. And now, under the file system vertex, next to example.txt, we will paste the full path to that file, and you can see that the workflow now knows where this file is located on the home machine. Now we go to Workflow, Generate Bash Script, and since this is just running on the home machine without any special schedulers or remote machines, we can just press Next and see that the default realization set that we created in the Realizations view is already selected. For the paths directory, I just put in the path directory we just created. For the base directory, where all the output of the workflow will go, I'll just put example, and I'll put my email address to be notified. Once script generation is done, we will go to the directory where the script was generated. Now I'll scp this example work shell file to the home machine, and we'll ssh to the home machine. And now I can just use bash to run this example work shell file with the -run flag. And the example workflow is now executed. Here in the base directory on the home machine, we have a directory for each vertex in the workflow with its default realization directory, and under the final directory you'll find the output, in this case a symlink to the same file we gave as input. After the first step, you can see that we end up with the first 10 lines of the file, and after the final step, we have the first 5 lines. Now let's take a look at the Loon files that LoonyBin produces. These are the log files recording the history of each step. So opening the final log file for this workflow, we see things such as how long it took the step to execute, what machine it was run on, the username, as well as the history for all previous steps that were run as dependencies of this vertex.